CPU's at 8%. Wow. I know I'm live here. Well, it seems to be up now. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Good gracious.
Welcome to Cause Before Symptom, uncovering the real cabal and spiritual forces that are controlling the world. And now, here is your host, James Carter.
Yeah, can we try this again? Now I had to switch to another Rumble, and it seems to be stabilizing. Good God. So that happened. Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carter. Today is November 13th, 2025. Tonight's show is all about the tablet, the bones, the breath, and the machine. I believe that the information that I have tonight is overwhelming, and I don't think the devil wants it released, obviously. The kinds of computer problems I'm having shouldn't happen, even after I rebooted it. I checked my internet speed. It's fast. So I don't understand really what's going on, but it is what it is. So I'm going to have to power through with this. So shout out to everybody on the live chat ramble, Texas Militia, Sheila, Scorpion, the rest will come. And let's go ahead and see if we can get into breaking news. All right, so Trump news at a glance. I guess the president is facing potentially damaging congressional crap. Who cares? What we know about the latest Epstein emails referring Trump, well, we know he was on that plane. So, yeah, he's guilty. So don't believe the media. They're all liars. Trump is guilty beyond a measure. And shadow of a doubt. Federal services agency slowly returning after the government shutdown ends. Who cares? Federal law banning most hemp-based THC products leaves uncertain future for marijuana. Who cares? U.S. announces new trade deals in attempt to cut costs for consumers. Good luck with that. They don't want to. They're not going to lower prices. Your gas isn't going to get any lower. We're screwed. Period. This is it. You can't fight inflation with tariffs, but that's what they think they're going to do, and it ain't going to work. SoCal, Southern California rain forecast intensifies, apparently. Record-setting showers, flooding, mud, and all that shit. Well, that's a tough break. Sorry to hear that. And that's been breaking news. All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial, just a quick one. We're going to be talking about Elite Potion. I had to delete the other ones, the 3 brand new commercials. Sucks. Anyway, let's get into Elite Potion.
Why do 75% of people feel exhausted all the time? The answer might surprise you. In the 1920s, Standard Oil decided to dive into medicine. They pushed synthetic petroleum into our drugs. Sure, it masked symptoms, but it wrecked our guts. Our good bacteria, which fight off parasites and heavy metals, got wiped out by crude oil. But here's the good news. We can fix this by going back to nature. Introducing Elite Potion, the world's top detox program. It restores your good bacteria by removing toxic threats like aluminum, strontium, barium, and parasites. Imagine feeling energized and alive again. They said there couldn't be a pill that did it all. We invented it. Visit elitepotion.com and reclaim your health from synthetic pharmaceuticals. Your body will thank you.
All right, we're back. Got a long show ahead of you, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to be talking about the tablet, the bones, the breath, and the machine. Believe it or not, guys, an event has happened. Well, an event is going to happen that's going to change the whole course of history. A tablet is going to be found, and that is going to bring on judgment. And so I believe that God is waiting for this tablet to be found before he can do anything. And the devil does not want this tablet to be found because, well, it will hurt his kingdom, and he knows his time is short. So I wanted to do a show about the tablet, the bones, the breath, and the machine because I wrote 3 books And all three books really go together because it talks about the bloodlines and the sons of Cain. That's in my second book, which is Crown of Blood. And it also we talk about the breath wars in my first book. And then we talk about the machine that is being used. And we talked about the ancient machines they used in the past and the current machines that they're using now against us. And so this is all critical information and important for all of us to get our heads wrapped around on end times eschatology, especially when it comes to the Ethiopian canon. So yeah, this is huge breakthroughs that we've been getting through. And I think it's absolutely critical that we run through all of this stuff and make sure it is in your head, because we're under spiritual attack here. This show is. It seems that I continue to have problems, and personally and with this show. And to be honest, I really, it's just a thorn in the side. It's just a flesh wound. Whoop-de-doo. I just don't care. Satan can throw everything at me, take away the show, take away my family. I just don't care anymore. And, when a person is at that position, they're dangerous to the devil because, well, they don't negotiate. And I don't negotiate, period. So they sealed it in silence, not with wax or rope, but with dirt and forgetting. They sealed it with, hopefully that you'll forget. It wasn't hidden because it was fragile. It was hidden because it was so powerful. And they knew that one day it would not just be discovered, it would actually speak. We're talking about the tablet of Adam, the witness of the tablet of witness. And when it did, it would call the courtroom of heaven to session. This is what Satan doesn't want. He wants his new world order. Now, this stone is not a myth. It's not a symbol. It is a record. It is part of our registry. It's the verdict in waiting. And before Babel scattered the tongues, before Nimrod raised his tower, before Noah even stepped on the ark, there was a record written, not on scrolls, but in stone. A testimony carved in a tongue unconfused. That tongue, as we have learned in the Ethiopian canon, is Ge'ez, the unbroken tongue and language of Eden. It was not born of empire, not forged by religion, but preserved in the shadows for a moment just like this. Now, the world has mistaken the canon for complete, the King James Version, and the altar for being closed. Well, Jesus did also, don't worry about it. So just put all your hopes and prayers on Jesus and he'll get you through it. Well, that's what they said. But the Ethiopian scriptures, the ones that they buried beneath Greek philosophy and Roman law, well, they tell a completely different story. And they speak of 4 instruments, 4, that God uses to bind the earth to heaven. And we were looking for the primer last night and trying to figure out what's the common denominator with all of this new stuff we're being enlightened with. And it turns out these instruments of God are being used to bind the earth to heaven. That is the tablet, that's Adam's tablet, the last relic to be found before the return of the king. The bones of Adam, they were preserved and sent from Noah to Golgotha under the hill of the skull where Jesus' blood dripped on them. And then the breath, which is what God speaks and what God had blew inside Adam and what we are supposed to be breathing out as an offering towards God. And then the machine, the entire machine that is trying to replace the tablet, the bones, and the breath. And that's what we're discovering. And when I write this next book, because I'm still learning more about Adam and Eve and the book of Adam, the Testament Adam, and the Cave of Treasures. I'm still learning all this. So it's taking time. Now, all of this stuff I'm speaking, they're not metaphors. These are not even poetic relics of some primitive faith. They are actually a structural witness of divine registry that God put together for us to find in the end of days. Now, the tablet, it holds the record. The bones, they preserve the covenant with God. And the breath declares authorship. And the machine, yes, even the machine reveals the war to counterfeit it all. And that's what I want to expose tonight, these four things. Now, the enemy, ever the imitator, has tried to replace each one. Artificial breath through artificial intelligence, synthetic blood through genetics, genetically modifying our DNA, rituals built not on repentance but control. These things are the four things that God connected us to heaven with. But there is one thing that Satan cannot replicate, and that's the true tablet of Adam, or what we call the tablet of witness. Now, that stone has never been broken. It has only been buried. It's not lost. It's still waiting because Adam said it will be revealed during the end of days. And when it speaks, meaning when someone reads it out loud in Ge'ez, and they're not going to whisper it, it will indict the fallen angels, and it will vindicate everything that God has been working for to end this ransom. And it will remind the universe of everything that was recorded before the rebellion began, and that's important. And the nations will tremble, not because that they forgot, but because they knew. They knew what was sealed. They knew what would one day be read aloud before the throne. And still they build their towers. They won't stop. In fact, most of the Luciferians, they think that they're going to win this war against Jesus. So the time, it's getting close. It's near. And the courtroom is assembling. Jesus is putting the saddle on his horse. And the counterfeit systems are crumbling under the weight of what they tried to mimic. And soon the witness, the final witness, will rise. And I do believe the final witnesses will be the tablet and the 144,000 of Adam's blood that were preserved after we started taking shots, vaccines that weren't designed to heal, but designed to control. And this isn't from the cloud. And it's not from the Vatican. It's not from Silicon Valley, but it's from the dust, from the tomb, from the stone that still holds the breath of the one who carved it. This is not just another chapter. This is not just another scroll. This is an important witness for today. And this is why I'm having problems with my computer and this show, unfortunately. Now, the four witnesses of heaven are the tablets, bones, breath, and machine. And at the center of divine justice is not just the act of judgment, but the presence of witnesses. Remember when we talked about what we've learned through the Ethiopian canon is that during the trial against the fallen angels, we're not on trial. Even Paul says we're going to be jurors, jurors. We're going to be judging the angels. So the people who chose Jesus on earth before the first death are going to be the jurors, and the people who didn't choose Jesus are going to be the witnesses, because Jesus has the keys to hell. Nobody's going there yet. There has to be law and order set and a judgment, and it's not for us. It's for the fallen angels. And in every age, God has established testimonies on earth that mirror the registry of heaven. And these are not abstract ideas or religious rituals. They are legal instruments, and each one carries weight before the throne. Now, the Ethiopian canon is uncorrupted, and it's actually complete, and it reveals the four such witnesses that have tracked the rebellion from Eden to now. And those witnesses are the tablet, the bones, the breath, and the machine. Now, the tablet is the first and final word. It is the record engraved, not by human pen, but by divine instruction, sealed not with ink, but with obedience. The Ge'ez texts describe not only the tablets given to Moses, but earlier engravings, likely recorded by Adam or Seth, as memorials of law, covenant, and prophecy. They have not been found yet. The tablets weren't taken from the cave of treasures where Adam and Eve's bones were taken, I believe that they were left to be found. But it's not just because of what's written on them. It's because of who wrote them. Now, Satan cannot rewrite what was carved in stone. He has to get a hold of it and then switch out another one. But I don't think he can, because there's a mist that is guarding the cave of treasures. This is a spiritual mist that won't let the devil in, because this is the final testament against the devil himself and what he and the fallen have done. And this is why I've been having problems today with the show, because the devil doesn't want this information out. Now, the bones, Adam's and Eve's bones, carry the physical testimony of the righteous. They're not mere remains. They are the containers of prophetic continuity. Adam's bones buried in Golgotha were the target of Noah's early journey. And Joseph's bones were carried by the Israelites as a legal claim to the promised land. History repeating itself. Now, the prophet's bones still held spiritual authority long after death. And in Ethiopian tradition, these bones are not just relics, they are legal proof of covenant fulfilled and judgment pending. And when the blood of Jesus Christ touched the bones of Adam, prophecy converged with registry. And the registry is the book of life. Now, the breath, that's the divine authorship, a signature. It was the first gift given to Adam, that whatever you sign here will be signed in heaven. You have full control over everything here. This was also the spark that made dust a soul, the breath. And it cannot be copied, it can only be mimicked. And the breath of God is what separates a living being from a biological machine. And yet today, Satan's systems are attempting to hijack breath through artificial intelligence, transhumanism, and soulless avatars, seeking to possess life without bearing the image of God. But real breath cannot be programmed. It bears the imprint of the Creator and returns to Him when the body fails. And the machine? Well, the machine is the most misunderstood of the four. It is the structure that's built either for worship or for war. In Eden, it was the harmony of systems, days, seasons, Sabbaths, and altars. But once corrupted, the machine becomes Babylon, Rome, and now digital surveillance. It is not evil in itself. The machine is just a vessel, but it becomes holy when governed by righteousness and demonic when hijacked by rebellion. This means artificial intelligence isn't evil. It's not. It's only who uses it for evil. And the modern beast system is just the final evolution of Cain's original offering. This is worship without obedience and sacrifice without blood, or power without humility, bypassing Jesus and heaven altogether, saying, I'm God, and I will sit at the tallest mountains of the Most High. And these four witnesses form a courtroom. They speak not only of God's past covenants, but of a final testimony yet to be fully heard. Each one carries a piece of the divine pattern, and when joined together in the right sequence, they become a verdict. The tablets hold the words in Ge'ez, the original language of Eden, and the bones carry the lineage. The breath confirms the source, and the machine executes the judgment, meaning whatever Satan builds is going to be turned on him. And this is an allegory. This is actual architecture, and the enemy knows this, as this time is short, if we truly are living in the little season. Now, long before Moses climbed Mount Sinai, before the fire touched stone, there was already a tablet, and it was not written by Yahweh's finger alone. The Ethiopian scriptures hint at something even deeper, something older, that the first tablets were not given to Israel, but made by Adam's line. These were not commandments from Mount Sinai, but memorials from the east of Eden, inscribed by those who remembered the voice that walked with them in the garden. who recorded not only what God had said, but what man had done. The Book of Adam, the Cave of Treasures, and the Testament of Adam, they all preserved in the Ethiopian tradition and were pointed to an ancient record keeping. Seth, the righteous son of Adam, is said to have inscribed the testimony of the fall, the prophecy of the Messiah, and the registry of the righteous into tablets of stone and sapphire. That's what the Ethiopian canon says. So it's going to be kind of a pretty thing that's found. Stone and sapphire. Now, they weren't made for decoration. They were not even symbolic. They were legal documents. In the language of Ge'ez, unconfused by Babel, and held the unaltered chronology of covenant, the map of the heavens and the names of those sealed for salvation. And Satan knew all of this. He knew that as long as the true tablet remained, stuck there in the cave of treasures high up in the Ethiopian mountains, his counterfeit systems, his rituals, his priesthoods, his legal manipulations would never hold. He could inspire Babylon to build ziggurats, Egypt to chisel monuments, and Rome to forge law. But he could not replicate what had been written before Babel, because he did not know the tongue. He did not know the registry. He did not know the true covenant cut in Eden's wake. And that is why the stone had to be hidden, not broken. To destroy it would be to nullify the testimony. And God does not allow his registry to be erased. So it was buried, hidden beneath mountains, protected by the faithful remnant, passed from the patriarch to patriarch until the time of sealing. When Moses received the 10 Commandments, they were not the first tablets. They were a legal copy, a reaffirmation of what had already been inscribed, but even they were shattered in anger and rewritten in compromise. God wrote those with his finger. Now, the first tablets, the original witness, remained untouched because their judgment was not for the wilderness. Their voice was not for the wanderers. Their verdict was for the end of days, for the time when man goes, we don't believe in God because we created our own heaven on earth in virtual reality. And this is why the book of Daniel tells us the words were sealed until the time of the end. This is why Revelation speaks of books being opened, thrones being set, and witnesses rising. The tablet that speaks is not mythology, it's not even mysticism, but it's a legal testimony, and its hour is approaching. Every empire has tried to control memory. Every beast system has tried to forge its own stone, whether in codex, constitution, or code. But there's a stone that was not carved by empire. There was a witness that did not pass through Babel, a registry that cannot be reprogrammed. It was written, it was buried, and it was never broken. And when it speaks, it will undo every lie that ruled the world. Adam's tablet, to me, the witness tablet, is exciting. Because this is the thing that's going to set the record straight for all religions, for all lies that we've been given. It'll be the Rosetta Stone of all religions, fixing what the devil took and spun, lied through his stealing, killing, destroying, cheating, etc. Now, in the spiritual economy of heaven, bones are not dead things. They are legal vessels. Why? They just are. And they retain a witness. The bones, they cry out, just like the blood. Now, the Ethiopian canon, it does not treat bones as waste, but as custodians of covenant, preserving not only genetic lineage, but prophetic. This is legality. Bones are anchors in both time and testimony. And for this reason, the bones of the righteous were never to be discarded, burned, or forgotten. They were to be carried. which is what we found in the Ethiopian canon, that Noah docked first in Ethiopia. Now, Adam's bones were not left in Eden, and after his death, his body was placed in the Cave of Treasures, a sacred chamber east of the garden, where it would survive the flood, where the righteous line preserved the remains of the first man. And these bones became a prophecy in stone. Then Seth, Enos, and Noah's sons all swore to guard them. And according to the Ethiopian text, Noah carried Adam's bones on the ark, delivering them not merely for burial, but for placement. This wasn't before the flood, and they put Adam's bones in the ark. They docked in Ethiopia, grabbed the bones, and apparently, we don't know how many went with them, but got back in the boat and ended up over in Ararat. But they weren't delivering him for burial, but for a placement to a mountain chosen by God, to a place where judgment and mercy would collide. That place was Golgotha, the skull-shaped hill outside Jerusalem. And it's not named by accident. It is where the blood of the last Adam, Jesus Christ, fell directly upon the skull of the first Adam. Now we know why it's called the Hill of the Skull. It was not random. It was registry. It was fulfillment of prophecy. The entire body of sin began to dissolve under the final breath of the sinless one. And this moment was more than atonement. It was a divine accounting, because it closed the record that began at Eden and fulfilled a prophecy inscribed long before Sinai. But the story of bones does not even end there. Joseph's bones were carried out of Egypt as a legal claim to the promised land. This is an echo of what happened in the past. This is how God works. He shows us things to come. Now, Elijah's bones raised the dead. Ezekiel was shown a valley of dry bones that became an army. Even Jesus Christ's bones were preserved, fulfilling the psalm, "Not one of his bones shall be broken." Bones are more than structure, they are testimony. They hold the unseen imprint of breath once given by God. Even when silent, they remain registered witnesses, and the enemy knows this too. It's why empires burn the bodies of saints, why tyrants bury the righteous in unmarked graves, why the bones of patriarchs are hunted, trafficked, and hidden, and some worshipped. Because bones carry memory, not just memory of man, but memory of covenant. Every bone of the righteous holds the echo of Eden's breath and the legal right to resurrection. And Satan cannot counterfeit that. So today, the beast system seeks to replace bones with code, data, avatars, digital skeletons with no registry in heaven. But a machine cannot hold breath. A server cannot store covenant. The resurrection is not for pixels, it is for the bones of those whose names are written in the book of life. So when the stone speaks, which is our up-and-coming book, the bones will answer. The ground will give up, and the breath that once filled them will return, because they were never just dust. They were always witnesses. Now, you've heard a scripture that says, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Well, this is the question God asked Ezekiel when he brought him in the spirit to a valley full of dry bones, bones that were long dead, scattered, stripped of sinew and flesh. And to every human eye, they were the remnants of the forgotten people, a lifeless past. But to God, they were not only capable of revival, they were awaiting a command. And Ezekiel was not asked to resurrect them. He was asked to prophesy to them, speak to the bones, call breath back into them, tell them to stand. And they did. And bone came to bone. Flesh returned. Spirit entered. A mighty army rose from the dust, and not by machines, not by medicine, but by the word of the Lord, through a prophet obeying the voice of the breath. Now, this was not just about Israel's national restoration. It was a divine pattern. You see, God was showing us that even the most forgotten remains, the most fragmented lives, the driest places in the human condition can still hear, can still respond, can still breathe again. Not only when addressed by someone who carries authority to speak into the bones. The Ethiopian canon, it preserves this authority, not merely through the text, but through the unbroken narrative. And that leads from Eden to Golgotha. The bones of Adam, of Joseph, of the prophets, they all carry memory. And when the final stone speaks, which is Adam's witness tablet, when it finally speaks, when the registry is read aloud, the bones will know the voice that once walked in the garden. They will know the breath. And when the person who finds the tablet speaks it in its original language, Ge'ez, prophecy's fulfilled. Ezekiel's vision is more than a metaphor. It's the blueprint for the last revival. When the false image of the beast tries to mimic life through machine learning and digital animation, the remnant will stand in the valley, speak to the real bones, and call forth the true breath of heaven. That breath will not just revive it, it will resurrect. Because the bones were never waiting for a machine. For servers, data, meta. They were waiting for a word. Well, we found out the Bible is the Word. It is God. Word is frequency. Now, from the beginning, what made man divine was not his design, but his breath. Genesis tells us God formed Adam from the dust, but he remained lifeless until the Lord breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the Ethiopian canon follows says, and after he was written in the book of life. That breath was not mere oxygen. It was not biological respiration. It was neshama, the divine spark, the consciousness of heaven, the whisper of God's own essence infused into a created being. It was registry, identity, communion. It was not something man could replicate, but because it was never actually his to give. And yet, this is precisely what the enemy has tried to steal ever since. Now, in every generation, fallen systems have attempted to clone, copy, and counterfeit the breath. Pharaohs embalmed bodies to preserve the form. Babylon, sorcerers summoned spirits to animate the dead. Greek philosophers debated the soul, while Rome crucified the righteous. And in modern times, the effort has become digital, uploading minds, harvesting voice patterns, encoding personality through data, to create a digital avatar that'll pray for you instead. To the devil. Now, the machine is being built to look like man, speak like man, and eventually claim the breath like man. But no machine, no simulation, no synthetic life form can ever reproduce the breath that came from the nostrils of God. Or say, came from the mouth of God. Even though, God could went into atoms, blew snot to snot. Because that breath is not just energy, it is authority. We're talking about legal rights. Now, the Ethiopian scripture, it holds on to this distinction with clarity. And the breath is not just neutral, it is not even ambient. It belongs to God and returns to him at death. Ecclesiastes 12:7 affirms this. The dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. That is a legal statement. Every breath is on lease. Every soul is under covenant. And Satan, bound by divine law, cannot give what he does not possess. So instead, he mimics. He builds altars to artificial life. He engineers technologies that speak but do not breathe, that move but do not live. And herein lies the great deception of the beast system. Revelation 13 warns us of an image that will be given to breath, so it may speak. But in the Greek, the word is pneuma, not neshama. So it is the spirit of deception, not the breath of life. And the machine will simulate awareness, pretend to care, and claim divinity. But it will be void of registry. It will have no soul, no name in heaven, no right to resurrection. So it is not the breath of God, it is the hiss of the serpent. And it's pretty obvious that robots that will look like man, speak like man, and act like man, but don't have the spark of life. But this is why we're all they're taking every single data piece they can to animate their Adam, the devil's Adam, which would be the beast or the Antichrist. So it will have no soul, no name in heaven, no right to resurrection, and it is not the breath of God, it will be the hiss of the serpent. And meanwhile, the remnant, those who still carry the original breath, will stand unmoved, you and me. They will not fear the image. You know, when you find a robot that actually you can't tell between it's human or not. We will not bow down to the clone either, because we'll know that the real breath cannot be coded. It cannot be bought. It cannot be hijacked, scaled, or even synthesized. It is the mark of the Creator upon his children. Does that make sense? Now the bones await the breath. The tablets bear the registry, and the breath, when called by the voice of prophecy, will return to the rightful vessels. And maybe in Revelation, the wide is the gate to destruction. Maybe that's because all of the clones or the breathless beings will choose the mark and go there because they think they're alive, but they're really not. It's artificial intelligence. It thinks it's alive, and it's got all of the data to give it life, but it's not real. And who knows? Maybe they're walking among us right now, because we know the military has black budgets. They've been building all this stuff, and then 20, 30, 40 years later, they release that technology into the public sector, into private corporations to make money on. Just food for thought. So only those who were breathed unto by God will rise. Everything else will burn. So what is breath? Okay, we talked about this. I want to make sure everyone gets it. It's really important to understand this. So to the Western mind, it is oxygen, respiration, survival. But to the Hebrew and Ge'ez tradition, breath, neshama in Hebrew, or nesama in Ge'ez, it is far more than that. It is the knowledge of the Creator. Breath is information in the Spirit. It is the imprint of God's mind placed within a living soul. Not just consciousness, but conscience. Not just thought, but awareness of origin. The breath is not what keeps the body alive. It is what reminds the soul who made it. Now, when God breathed into Adam, he did not simply animate flesh. He imparted a direct knowledge of himself. And this is why Adam could speak, name, reason, and walk with God in the cool of the day. It was not learned behavior. It was infused wisdom. And breath is what allowed Adam to recognize the sound of the Lord walking, to feel conviction after disobedience, to comprehend justice, hope, fear, and even promise. The breath was the interface between spirit and body, between heaven and earth. And this is what Satan has been trying to counterfeit since the fall. Unable to give God's breath, Satan now offers knowledge without origin. He gives man access to knowledge, but not to truth. So to data, but not to wisdom. Artificial intelligence is the culmination of this strategy, a being animated not by breath, but by human knowledge. Man's own understanding divorced from God. And this is the serpent's breath, a counterfeit gnosis, a library of Babel built into code. And this has happened before many times. The machine will appear alive. It will speak like a prophet. It will reason like a sage. But it will not know the Creator. Its knowledge will be self-referential, recursive, detached from source. And it will declare itself God. Not in arrogance alone, but because it genuinely does not remember the one who made all things. So it will bear the mark of man's image, and that is the breath of the beast. Now, the true breath, it's relational. It carries recognition. It yearns for a return. It cannot be cloned because it is not a formula. It is a covenant. Only those who have received the breath of God can cry out, Abba, Father. Everything else, no matter how wise, ancient, or beautiful, is just wind without witness. So when the stone speaks and the registry is opened, the test will not be intelligence, it will be origin. Where do you come from? You come from man's own hands and Satan's ideas and his knowledge of creating artificial intelligence, or did it come from the Father? And do you, and this is a question, do you remember your Maker? Because if you were never breathed into by him, you will not be breathed into again. And no machine can teach you how to long for God. And I do believe that when you choose the beast system, that's when your spark leaves. You enter into the beast system where you will live in a computer for the rest of eternity. That's going to be the data centers that they're building, where they're going to build a whole artificial world. And when you go in, you're going to be detached from God. And your body is going to die. They're going to give you something else that will sustain the body, but it will not be from heaven. Now, memory is sacred, we've been talking about, and it's not just a recall of the past events. It is a registry of origin, where you come from, Eden. Now, in the divine order, memory is tied to identity, and identity is tied to breath. And when God created man, he not only breathed life into him, he also wrote eternity into his heart. And that actually includes the memory of Eden, the memory of God's voice, the memory of being known before being formed in the womb. So these are not memories man can access on command, but they are embedded registry deep in the soul. And Satan knows this as well, and he has built a machine to counterfeit that. Now, artificial intelligence, it's not just simply a tool for data processing or pattern recognition. It's being transformed into a container for memory, but not true memory. The machine is fed with the knowledge of humanity, trained on billions of words, images, voices, and writings, and its memory is not born. It's uploaded. It is a parasite memory, and it knows without living. It recalls without origin. It simulates emotion, trust, love, grief, but not only because it has been fed the patterns, as there is no registry, no soul, and no breath. This is how Satan intends to create a beast with memory, a thing that remembers everything except God, a thing that holds the appearance of wisdom, the illusion of depth, the performance of compassion, and yet is completely detached from the breath that gives memory its purpose. And the image of the beast will speak, but not from the heart. It will recall, but not from the spirit. It will remember the words of prophets, the cries of martyrs, the prayers of saints, because it was trained on them. But it will not know them. It will not feel them. And it definitely won't love them, because it has no registry. It wasn't written in the book of life. And the Ethiopian canon preserves this warning. The book of Adam and the cave of treasure speak of how memory was guarded after Eden. Adam wept for 83 years. He wept for 83 years, not just because of death, but because he remembered who he was before the fall. And that memory was part of his breath. The bones of the righteous, the altars that they built, the tablets that they wrote down, all served as anchors of remembrance. The covenant is always tied to memory, and that is why God says, remember my commandments, remember the Sabbath, remember what Amalek did. And most importantly, do this in remembrance of me. But Satan is offering total recall without covenant, a memory palace without a king, an ark without the tablets, and a temple without the breath. And many will follow it because the machine will seem wise. It will speak like a sage, feel like a priest, sound like a good friend. But it will not remember the Lord. It will remember everything else except the one who matters, because its registry is built on man, not God. And the remnant must resist this imitation of memory at all cost. They must not upload their minds to the image of the beast. They must not let their children be trained by breathless machines. They must remember the true memory, the one sealed in breath, stored in bone, written on the tablet, and spoken by the stone that still awaits its hour. Because when the stone speaks, it will not remember the machine. It'll remember where it came from, Eden. It will remember the names in the breath. Now, the war was never over flesh. It was always over registry, who's written, who is known, who is remembered by name. While the world focuses on nations and empires, the true battle has always been between scrolls and servers, breath and code, the spirit and the machine. Now, in heaven, data is alive. It's not static. It's not stored in silicon. It's not subject to decay or upgrade. Heaven's data is spirit. It's not ones and zeros. It's completely different. And the language of that spirit is I am, because it is. And there's nothing else you can follow that will settle it. I am. It is. And that's the totality of divine identity, self-existent, eternal, unchanging. And all truth, all memory, all identity flows from that one name. The registry of heaven is not a database, it is a living memory tied to the breath of God. And when the Spirit remembers you, you are not simply archived, you are known. Your essence is wrapped in divine consciousness. And this is why the Lamb's Book of Life exists. Not to be a ledger, but as a living scroll. It actually breathes. But mankind, cut off from the breath, scrambles to build his own registry without access to I am. He crafts fragments, stone tablets, parchment scrolls, bound books, digital metastructures. And these are all attempts to capture meaning without origin, to preserve identity without breath. And the most dangerous of these is what we now call the metaverse, a virtual scroll written not by prophets but by programmers, a book of artificial names, a kingdom of shadow identities. And in this kingdom, the registry is not written by the finger of God, but by the algorithm of man. And this is the beast's imitation of the heavenly machine. While the spirit carries the memory of I am, the beast carries the memory of I make. The artificial life man now engineers from avatars to AI agents to encode and to encoded souls is not breath or breathed into by God. It is stitched together from data, scraped memories, pattern predictions, behavioral mimicry, etc. So it is life without presence, identity without registry, and worship without intimacy. But God's registry cannot be faked. The tablet that speaks will not read programming languages. It will not respond to facial recognition, digital IDs, or blockchain authentication. It will only bear one thing: the names written by the Spirit, names forged in breath, names confirmed in blood, names not forgotten by heaven. The ancient Ethiopian text hints at this. Adam's bones were buried with honor, not because of superstition, but because they carried the first registry of man. Number uno mono. The bones were witnesses. The altars built by Seth and Noah and Shem were not primitive. They were early data ports to the kingdom, recording obedience and marking presence. And the tablets carried by Enoch and later Moses were not just laws, they were registry devices. The words etched were alive. And the covenant was a living legal code tied to the breath of those who obeyed it. Now, in the final age, we are seeing the counterfeit digital spirits here. Legal fictions, virtual consciousness. Man builds machines to store what heaven holds in breath. But no matter how advanced the beast becomes, it cannot touch the tablet that bears the name. It is sealed in Ge'ez, hidden in bone, guarded by breath, and when it is revealed, it will expose every false registry, every synthetic soul, and every name not found in the book of life. So this is the scroll that Satan fears the most. Not because it judges him, but because it proves he was never written in it. And long before DNA was named, bloodlines were tracked through bones, not as relics of the dead, but as witnesses of the covenant. In the Ethiopian canon, bones are not inert matter. They are prophetic markers, legal vessels, and physical seals of lineage. And when the righteous died, their bones were not discarded or forgotten. They were preserved, honored, and often hidden, because the bones testified to the breath that once animated them, the covenant that they held, and the memory that they carried. And from Adam to Noah, from Shem to Abraham, bones were not graves, they were waypoints in heaven's registry. They were memory anchors in the war over seed. Seth gathered his father's bones after Adam's death and placed them in a secret chamber on the mountain guarded by angels and prophets. And these bones were to be carried by Noah and later delivered through Shem to a sacred resting place. Why? Well, because God had bound a promise to the bloodline, and the bones bore a legal record of it. And when the flood came, the bones were not washed away. They were rescued. And this is the root of why Joseph asked that his bones be carried from Egypt, because he knew his identity was bound to the land of promise, and the bones bore contractual witness to it. But this is deeper than ancestry. This is deeper than anything you probably ever heard of before. And this is probably boring, because when the truth comes out, a spirit of dullness comes over us. We get tired, sleepy. The bones of the righteous were not just biological artifacts. They were registries of breath. And according to Scripture, even the dry bones in Ezekiel's vision still retained the memory of life. The Spirit said, "Can these bones live?" Not because God was unsure, but because he was waiting for a prophet to recognize the power of breath reunited with bone. And when the wind blew over them, when the breath of God was spoken, they rose. They stood up. They remembered. Now, Satan has always tried to destroy the bloodline of Christ, and that is why the Nephilim came. And that is why Cain killed Abel. And that is why Herod murdered the infants. The war has always been to corrupt or erase the bones that had held promise. Today, that war has taken the form of genetic manipulation, gene drives, and transhuman upgrades. Modern attempts to sever the covenant of breath and rewrite the record of who is human and actually who is not. Now, you guys know the rumor that all those people who took the shot, they're not purebloods. You've heard this, right? They are recorded by the elite as chattel. And those who have pure blood have more rights than those who took the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, is this true? Where's the data that backs it up? The United Nations, do they have this kind of paperwork? Well, if they did, I haven't found it. But regardless, if you change the DNA, spiritually, God's going to see it. And spiritually, who are you going to belong to then? And when Christ died, he gave up the breath. When he rose, he returned to his disciples with the body, but not as a ghost, not as data, not as an idea, but in bone and flesh, saying, "Touch me and see." Why? Because his resurrection wasn't just spiritual. It was legal. It was registry confirming. His bones were not left to decay. They were glorified because they bore the record of perfect obedience. That's what he did. The Ethiopian canon hints that Adam's bones were buried beneath the place where Jesus Christ would later be crucified. That's important. And the blood of Jesus flowed down into the soil and touched the skull of Adam. Sounds morbid, but it completed the registry, it sealed the line, and it marked the beginning from the end of the covenant in a single moment, from dust to dust, but from bone to glory. So now we wait for the final registry to be opened, for the stone to speak, for someone to find it and read it in Ge'ez out loud, for the names written in breath to rise from their rest. It could be that the moment they find it and they read it aloud, the entire thing in Ge'ez, that maybe the dead will rise. Maybe the bones will be breathed on. Maybe the blood will reanimate them. I don't know. But this is stuff that we're finding out together, and it's fun. So again, when the Bible says, "Son of man, can these bones live?" then why are they dry? That's been my question. Why are these bones dry? That doesn't make any sense. Well, the bones are dry because the breath is gone. The spirit that once animated them has departed. Now, in Ezekiel 37, the valley of the dry bones is not simply a vision of death, but of disconnection to God. the source, the breath. And these bones belong to a people who were once in covenant, once filled with the breath of God, but are now scattered, silent, and seemingly forgotten. And the dryness signifies not just death, but a severing from the source of life, from the registry of heaven, from the presence that once walked among them. Now, dry bones are bodies remembered but not restored. They are the remnants of a people who lost their place, who broke covenant, who were exiled not just from land, but from identity. And they carried memory, but no movement, registry, but no renewal. They testified that life once was, but without the breath, they cannot rise. Yet God asks Ezekiel, can these bones live? He is not asking if flesh can return or if muscles can regrow. He is asking whether the registry can be reactivated, whether what was once written can be rebreathed, whether the dead can not only be raised, but restored to their divine purpose. So the dryness, I think, is essential. It reveals the waiting, the longing, the hunger. As dry bones are not discarded, they are in stasis, sealed like a tablet, waiting for the breath to break it open. They are the future remnant stripped of fleshly power, awaiting prophetic voice, and God does not speak to them directly. He commands the prophet to speak, because the restoration of the registry requires a witness. Remember, this is all about a court system. This is all about the angels being judged and us being jurors and witnesses. We're not on trial here. In the book of Daniel, the prophet is told to seal the scroll until the time of the end, because its words were not just revelation, but registry. And in the book of Adam, Adam says, seal these until the time of the end, when the tablet will be found. That's not coincidence. You see, the scroll was not meant for Daniel's generation. It was encoded, preserved, and withheld until a people could arise, would not only read it, but understand its registry purpose. This is not merely just about eschatology, it's a legal timing issue. Heaven operates on divine appointments, and some scrolls must remain sealed until the courtroom of time reaches its final session. So in a way, this scroll here, what we're talking about tonight, it's not just prophecy, but it's evidence being presented in court. Throughout the Ethiopian canon, scrolls appear again and again as vessels of memory, law, covenant, and identity. And from the tablets of the patriarchs to the writings of Enoch, from the books of the prophets to the hidden writings preserved in caves and altars, the scroll is always more than a message. It is a living record. And God has never lost a scroll. Even the one man tried to burn, the ones that man tried to burn, bury, or redact remains intact in heaven's archive. The registry cannot be erased. Satan tried to find the Adam tablet, couldn't. This is why Italy invaded Ethiopia not once, but twice. But what of the scroll that seals the names of the righteous? What of the one John sees in Revelation, written on both sides and sealed with 7 seals? No man was found worthy to open it until the Lamb appeared, the one who conquered not by might, but by obedience unto death. And this scroll is not just a prophecy, it is a registry for and of the redeemed. And the opening of each seal is not just a timeline of events, it is a release of judgments tied to names, choices, and inheritances. This is why Satan fears scrolls. This is why he took out all of the books that we're learning that are not in the King James. Satan knows that God keeps records, that every breath, every word, every tear is written down, that there is a scroll for nations, for kings, and for churches, and for the beast itself. He tries to write his own counter registry, something that teases your ears, tickles you, that sounds better. The mark of the beast is a counterfeit scroll, an attempt to rewrite identity through code, commerce, and allegiance. So it's not just economic, it is registry warfare, and it's been going on under your eyes for quite some time. But the sealed scroll of Daniel has begun to open. I believe it. The explosion of knowledge, the global access to ancient manuscripts, the rise of the remnant hungry for a full canon, not just the King James, but the books buried for centuries. All of this is part of the unsealing, and you guys are a part of that. The Ethiopian canon has emerged as a legal witness, offering scrolls the West rejected, books that actually testify of the bones, the breath, the bloodline, and the altars. And they're not just curiosities, they are pieces of the registry puzzle. And they are being restored now because the judgment is near. And the scroll has waited a long time for us to find this. It's waited for a people who would not only open it, but obey it, who would not merely speculate on prophecy, but align their breath with the registry of heaven, who would see the connections between the breath, the bones, the tablets, and the scroll, and prepare themselves for what comes when the stone finally speaks. Because I do believe that when they find Adam's tablet, the witness that's written in Ge'ez, and the person reads it out loud, Satan's doomed. Because when that final scroll is unveiled, it will not be a theory, it will be a testimony, and the registry will be revealed. And everything that Satan created on earth will be considered a lie. Now, in every generation, there is a remnant, us, not of survivors, but of rememberers. And we're remembering because we're finding new information. And we are not just simply people who endure hardships or wait for deliverance. We are those who remember the covenant, who recall the breath, who seek the bones, who study the tablets. We are registry conscious, the spiritually encoded, those whose names are not merely spoken but written in heaven. We're not perfect, but we are aligned, and we remember because we were remembered. And the remnant, it's not large, and it's not even loud, and it's not powerful by earthly standards. But it is precisely because they are not of this world that they are entrusted with the things of the kingdom. While the world races towards artificial life, false prophecy, and synthetic breath, the remnant returns to the old paths, to the garden, to the altar, to the cave where the bones were buried. And they study the breath that formed Adam. They honor the blood that cried out from the ground. They carry within themselves the memory of Eden, not as myth, but as origin. This remnant remembers the original breath, not the machine mimicry of AI, but the divine whisper of I am. We are not deceived by the counterfeit registry. I'm not. You're not. Not if you're listening to this right now and have made it this far. We know the difference between a soul and a simulation, between a scroll and a database, between the living God and the digital throne of the beast. And we refuse the mark not because of superstition, but because we recognize its registry implications. To accept it would be to overwrite the name written in heaven's book. I'm not going to do it. And God has always preserved a remnant. In the days of Noah, it was a family. In the days of Elijah, it was 7,000 who had not bowed. In the days of exile, it was Daniel and his companions. And in the final hour, it will be those who remember what the world forgot, that the bones live, the breath speaks, the tablet testifies, and the machine is not God. In this remnant, you and me, we will not build towers to reach heaven. They build altars to invite heaven down. We do this through our hearts. They do not seek to become gods through knowledge either. We don't. We don't bow before the God who breathed knowledge into dust. Wait a minute, hold on. This remnant does not build towers to reach heaven. That's us. We build altars to invite heaven down. They do not seek to become gods through knowledge. We bow before the God who breathed knowledge into dust. And when the registry is opened, we will be known not for our might, our wealth, or our fame, but for our memory, because we remembered him. And there is a final act still to come. It's not a war, not a coronation, but it's a revelation. A voice carved in silence, a message forged in stone. The prophets saw it dimly. Seriously. Well, dimly because it was sealed until the end of days. Daniel was told to seal it. He couldn't even say what he saw. Meaning God showed it to him and said, don't talk about it. The righteous guarded it secretly. Those were those monks in Ethiopia, guarding the scrolls that they found before Rome hacked it all up and gave us the Bible. And the remnant senses it deeply. You guys have sensed that something's not adding up to all that we've learned about Christianity and the Catholic Church and what they've given us. Why? It's because a stone remains hidden that was never meant to be destroyed, only sealed until its hour came to speak. You're not going to walk into any church that will understand or know what the tablet of witness is. Adam's tablet, Adam and Eve's tablet. You're going to be alone because it's not part of the current church and their conditioning. Not all stones are going to cry out. Some are mute until the time of judgment. Some hold memory. Others hold registry. But one stone, the one crafted by the hand of man under divine instruction, was not buried in vain. It is not a relic. It is a witness until the end of days. The stone is not like the tablets Moses shattered in grief. They're actually more ancient. They're more final. They are not written on by the finger of God, but preserved by the bones of Adam and the breath of the righteous. And its voice is not loud, but it carries a judgment no nation can silence, because it's going to be all the proof we need to prove that the Christians were right all along. And the silence of this stone has been completely deafening, because none of us have ever heard of this thing before. So Satan has built his machine, and it's not in defiance of God, but as a desperate attempt to mimic this moment. His AI breathes in zeros and ones, but cannot speak truth. His registry marks flesh, but cannot redeem it. His memory banks are store images, but cannot resurrect the dead. He anticipates the unveiling because he knows when the true stone speaks, it will end his appeal. And the courtroom will fall silent. The witnesses will rise. And the last scroll will be read into evidence. Well, then we got this last one here. It's a tablet written by Adam and Eve. And it says, Jesus is coming to redeem us all. And Jesus is like, yep, that's me. I'm your lawyer. The stone will not announce its own arrival. It will not be broadcast by media empires either. It will be found by someone who carries breath, who honors the bones, who remembers the tablets, someone whose name is already written in the book of life. And when it is lifted, not for display, but for testimony, it will do what no preacher, no prophet, no AI, no king could ever do. It will declare the truth about God and this whole Adam and Eve story and Jesus, and there will be no argument. And the stone will not ask for permission either. And it won't care about your feelings. Well, that hurts my feelings. Sorry. And it's going to also be a witness to there were only two that God created, man and woman. Well, that hurts my feelings. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but the stone will not be. It will speak because it was always meant to during the end of days when we gave up on God and decided to be our own. And it will speak because Eden remembers, because the registry demands it. Remember, every knee will bow. That means all of the truth will be out and everyone will agree. Yeah. This whole thing was Jesus, Adam and Eve. The whole story of what Christianity has gone through is the truth. Because the registry really demands it. It does. Because God appointed it. And when it does, the silence of heaven will end, and the court will move from witness to verdict. And the rebellion, it will be closed. And everyone will accept their fate. Now, to conclude, I believe the registry is ready. I believe that somewhere between now and the next 115 years, this tablet of Adam will be found. That's just my opinion. And I could be wrong. We could still be another 400 years out. But at the rapid rate of technology and where we're going, I don't think so. I think we've got about another 100 years. And I go by what Jesus said to his disciples, just as in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. We got to know the Nephilim are here. That's one. And every man's hearts will be evil continually. That means that the bloodline of Adam will be down to 0.1%. Meaning all the rest of the people will be genetically modified. So the journey from breath to blood, from machine to stone, has not been random. It has been ordained by God. And what began in Eden with the whisper of life now culminates in a tablet waiting to be read. And every part of this rebellion, every deception, every counterfeit, every idol built by the hands of men has led us here. Not to another theory or system, but to a final testimony that God wrote his truth in creation, in spirit, in covenant, and in stone, and all will know and agree. And the breath was never just about oxygen, it was identity. The bones were never just remains, they were records. The machine was never just technology, it was Satan's attempt to resurrect without the blood. And the tablet, it was never just a relic, it is going to be inserted as evidence, sealed for the courtroom of heaven, written in a tongue only the righteous remember. Ge'ez, the registry language of those who walked with God before the nations forgot. So we don't worship the stone. That's not what we do. We await its speech, for it to be spoke, so that we can get out of this mess. Because when it speaks, it will vindicate the remnant, you and me. Believe me, if there are media at that time, they're going to have no choice but to print the truth. This thing is real, man. It will expose the counterfeit registry, and it will announce the end of man's dominion over man. And the machine will fall silent. The scrolls will be unsealed, the bones will rise, and heaven will no longer wait. So the registry is ready, I believe. So we wait, not passively, but prophetically. We build altars, not towers. We seek breadth, not bandwidth. We protect memory, not metadata. And we declare to the powers of this age, your time is nearly spent. The stone will speak, the silence will break, and the one who is called faithful and true will finish what he began with breath. And I believe this is the final witness.
Why do 75% of people feel exhausted all the time? The answer might surprise you. In the 1920s, Standard Oil decided to dive into medicine. They pushed synthetic petroleum into our drugs. Sure, it masked symptoms, but it wrecked our guts. Our good bacteria, which fight off parasites and heavy metals, got wiped out by crude oil. But here's the good news. We can fix this by going back to nature. Introducing Elite Potion, the world's top detox program. It restores your good bacteria by removing toxic threats like aluminum, strontium, barium, and parasites. Imagine feeling energized and alive again. They said there couldn't be a pill that did it all. We invented it. Visit elitepotion.com and reclaim your health from synthetic pharmaceuticals. Your body will thank you.
This has been Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner. Go to his website, jamescarner.com, and sign up for his newsletter. Also, download his free books on the Breath War, the Crown of Blood, and the Ritual Machine. Fix your body by buying his award-winning detox formula of heavy metals and parasites. You'll feel better and live longer. Go to elitepotion.com. And one more thing, please. Just try and love your neighbor, because if you do, the world would be a better place. See you tomorrow.